A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Welcome to Eat Sleep Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more worked up than Gollum in a ring shop.
Welcome to episode number 22. I'm Corey Winter, and as always, I am joined by my nerdy brother Josh Winter and our geeky friend Jason Summer. Let me get through the thing.
No!
In this episode, we are quickly going through the week's top geeky news, including updates on the Warner Brothers dumpster fire, Halo Infinite not getting split screen co-op, and more. In the second half of the episode, we'll be doing full spoiler reviews and recaps of She-Hulk Episode 3, House of the Dragon Episode 2, and the first two episodes of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. We know how it is, listeners. You hear us tell you to share our show every episode, and you figure that everyone else is going to already be doing it, so why should you? Well, let me tell you what, it's very important, and we'd really appreciate it if you just, go share the show.
Even if you don't listen to it, just throw it up on your Facebook page.
Why would they not listen to it?
I mean, I'm just saying you should, but, it should be up on your Facebook page. Maybe, if you hear somebody talking nerd about something, be like, oh, hey, there's this Eat Sleep Nerd podcast you should listen to. Just work it into your normal, everyday conversations.
By the way, friend, have you heard the greatest nerd podcast of all time?
They have three great guys that are talking about things that you love.
Which one is that?
That would be us.
Oh.
We were all talking about advertising our little show, which, you kind of started this one, but thanks for falling off that bandwagon.
Thought we were hyping up somebody else, but you know what? How about you go hype us up? We could use the love.
We could.
Every share, every like, every 5-star review is super important. So please take a moment to go share this show with the friends. Josh, Jason, we're together in the same room.
At the same table.
At the same table.
Jason has a real mic.
I have a real mic.
Mine's better.
Wow. I just can't.
You're actually on my mic, which is funny.
When I say my mic, I have one that's dedicated for me during this session. How's that?
You got my hand-me-down mic?
Well, as the eldest child, that is a new sensation. Most things get handed down from me. So this is new. Okay.
So yes, hopefully this show sounds good this time for once. Hopefully being together does not have any adverse effects. But how are you guys doing this week? What geeky things have you been up to?
Well, I've been traveling, and as Corey just pointed out, that I'm here in the same cities as the brothers Winter. Let's see, what have I done geeky this week? I've been watching a lot of our shows that we want to get ready for this episode. That's pretty much it.
Well, you guys introduced me to Star Trek Lower Decks. Yeah. And I will say, it's pretty awesome. It's like Rick and Morty and Futurama meet Star Trek. And those two things shouldn't go together, but they do. So Josh, high five on that one.
You're welcome.
I mean, you didn't make it, but
no. I mean, it's. So don't get me wrong. It's very different. It's very much a cartoon, but in a lot of ways, I think I could make a firm argument for it actually being the best Star Trek show. So, I don't know.
That's strong.
I stand behind it.
You stand by, like even Strange New Worlds?
Yeah.
Wow.
Buck, it takes the Star Trek lore and just makes it funny and more approachable, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Corey, you haven't watched much Star Trek at all.
No, but we are going to go see Wrath of Khan tomorrow.
Right. So. Which they have talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Which should be a really, really awesome experience. But in any case, so you're the outsider looking in on this and you're thoroughly enjoying the series.
I almost kept watching it without you guys, but I figured we could watch it a little bit more together before we did that.
That'd be cool. And they're going to do a crossover episode with Strange New Worlds in their season 2.
And we just got more details about that, right?
Did.
How that's actually going to work.
Right, correct. Because there's a big question. And it turns out the voice actors are actually going to play their characters as live versions of themselves on Strange New Worlds.
So it will not be Roger Rabbiting.
I mean, that makes me feel better. So,
but yeah, I think the fun part is going to see how they're going to get those two crews together, because not only are they animation and live action, they're also several hundred years apart, or 100 years apart.
Okay.
In storylines, timelines. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because Lower Decks takes place post Next Generation. Next Generation starts, I think it's like 80 something years after the original series. And Strange New Worlds is a prequel to the original series.
Yeah, but Strange New Worlds has already kind of played around with time travel. So
Star Trek always plays around.
But the question is, what's going to be the storyline?
Yeah.
How are they going to end up crossing paths? For what reason?
I don't know. As long as it's better than that fantasy episode, I'm okay with it.
Still hung up on that one, huh? Yeah. But see, the sad thing, not the sad thing, but the thing is that is also quintessentially Star Trek, that episode.
It is.
They'll do one like that every now and then. But like we said in that podcast episode, it's generally further down the line after the character's been more established.
So some programming notes. Obviously, this week we're talking about all of our She-Hulks and House of the Dragons and Rings of Power. On next week's episode, we'll be continuing that with She-Hulk Episode 4, House of the Dragon Episode 3, Lord of the Rings of Power Episode 3. And we'll be talking about some D23 coverage. Disney's D23 convention, I guess is what they call it. We'll be talking about some news that's coming out of there. Hopefully, a lot of stuff is coming out of there. So let's actually use that to talk about this next thing. What do you guys want to see coming out of D23? So there's going to be 3 showcases specifically that I think we'll take some interest in. So on Friday the 10th, there's going to be 2 showcases that I think we'll get some good stuff from. At 3 p.m. Central Time, so 4 p.m. Eastern, the Marvel and Disney video game showcase will be taking place. So hopefully they'll be announcing some new video games set in the Marvel and DC properties. At 6:30 Eastern Time, the Disney and Pixar showcase will be happening. And then on Saturday the 11th at, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the Marvel, Lucasfilm, and 20th Century showcase will be occurring. So all 3 of these studios will be taking the same stage to show off previously announced things, but also announcing some new things. And so what do you guys think we will be getting, and what do you want to get from D23 this coming weekend?
I would like more answers, or at least a better idea of where Marvel is headed. Because I still feel, even with all of the movies and shows that they outlined in the last convention, the Phase 4 still feels like it's just running off the rails in different directions.
That, but also they announced Phase 5 and 6, but aside from the bookends with the Marvel or the Avengers movies, they didn't really announce what's coming in between.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Even with all that information, it just didn't feel like we were going to get any sense of cohesion anytime soon. I mean, they've been fun to watch and they've been enjoyable, but it's also been kind of, where are we going with this? And I would like to know, I'd like a little more direction, personally.
I mean, I've got a wish list. I'm not going to say what I think they're going to do or what they're not going to do. As far as my wish list goes, it's really 3 big things. I think we're at the point we need to go ahead and announce who the Fantastic Four are. Mm-hmm. Like we keep dancing around about it and then rumors and everything like that. Like, let's not act like we don't know. Let's go ahead and say who that is. From the video game side of it, something that is now owned by the property, but we don't talk about too much. I'm ready for an Indiana Jones game.
So that has been announced, if you remember.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. So in that case, I want to see more about the Indiana Jones game. Yes. Because literally all we got was, I think, like a title card. Mm-hmm. Like that's literally all it is.
It wasn't even, it was like a 20-second teaser trailer.
Yeah, like year. It literally showed nothing.
It's to remind our audience, it is coming from the Indiana Jones game is coming from Bethesda and specifically Machine Games. So Todd Howard is producing this game, so it should be pretty good.
So a lot of glitches.
Oh no. So yes, but aside from just that initial announcement, nothing has been said about it since then. So yeah, this would be a good time to do that. What else?
And then I think we need to revisit and hopefully give some good news about what the hell we're going to do with KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
because that was heavily anticipated by pretty much anyone who's older than 20, because we all remember that game from our childhood. And it was apparently well into production when it supposedly got canned. So we need to do something. Something about that.
So on the video game side of things, I think I forgot about Indiana Jones thing, so it'd be awesome to get an update on that.
Yeah.
I would like to see some gameplay from Marvel's Wolverine, the game coming from Insomniac Games, the same studio that made the Spider-Man games.
Right.
So
Forgot that one was announced too.
Yeah, they announced that last year. We have not heard anything since then, so hopefully this
very
will be
brief
the
trailer.
time. Yeah. Bold prediction, I would like to get at least a tease of a revival of Star Wars 1313. The canceled, the long since canceled bounty hunter game.
Yeah, we didn't know it was a Boba Fett game until recently, but it was totally a Boba Fett game.
Yes, but with how The Mandalorian and the Boba Fett TV series have blown up, it would totally make sense to bring that game back from the dead.
Yeah, do you remember Bounty Hunter on PS2?
I enjoyed Bounty Hunter a lot.
It has not aged well because it is on PlayStation Now, and I downloaded it. And it's not that the game is bad. Control is bad. It's a very dated game.
Interesting.
And firing it back up and trying to use a modern control, it doesn't do well. The camera is like half sticky and like half stationary. Like, it's weird. It is really weird. So I don't know if it was just a super bad port.
But that's where you're playing as Jango Fett, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I remember loving that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
Like, we burned through that disc. And like I said, I fired, and it wasn't the graphics, it wasn't the gameplay itself, but just the controls were so weird. And like I said, I played it on the PS5, and it came out on the PS2, so it can't have been a drastically different controller. So I don't know what was going on there.
I mean, essentially, all the buttons are the same, except for an extra trigger, right?
Yeah.
On each side.
So I don't know. Anyway, so yes, agreed. Also, there is one more Marvel game that I want them to either continue developing or try again. And it's the Avengers game. Like, that was supposed to be a huge game as a service that has gotten essentially no service over the last year or so. Like, I think they released like 2 little tie-in pieces. One with Jane Foster for Love and Thunder. You can play as her in the game. They introduced her character.
They release new skins pretty regularly, but that's about it.
Yeah, but there's been no major expansion since Black Panther.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything, and that was over a year ago. So we either need to continue developing content for this, or put the team maybe on a reboot or a sequel and change up how it works. I don't know. But I had fun playing the game, but now there's no new content for it. So that's a bad game for service if there's no service.
Way bold prediction. I would like to get an Iron Man game and a sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy. On the movie side of things, like you were saying, it's time, and it's probably a sure thing that they had to talk about Fantastic Four casting news. They have the director now. They have a date set. They had to talk about the casting, especially with the fact that we've heard rumors recently and reports that Penn Badgley might be approached by Marvel Studios. So it makes sense that they use this as an opportunity to announce the cast. But I want to hear something about X-Men.
I was waiting to see if you're going to say that, and if you didn't, I want to see something on X-Men too. As
time.
well.
Yeah,
it's time.
20th Century will be there, so it makes sense.
Exactly.
I mean, what else are they going to talk about?
Well, because you brought up the game, it reminded me that there's an Indiana Jones 5 that's upcoming. I'd like to see a trailer or a teaser for that.
Proper trailer.
A proper one. And John Williams announced that the score was finished this week.
So that means it's got to be edited enough.
Exactly.
That he could do a score.
There's something out there or there's enough music out there where they can use his music for the trailer. So that would be kind of cool. And I would honestly be surprised if they didn't do something. All the principal photography is completed. They now have a score. I think there's enough to do a trailer.
Yeah. So yes, these are some bold predictions. Hopefully a lot of them, if not all of them, come true. As I said previously, D23 is happening this weekend, September 10th through 12th. These 2 showcases that we're focusing on will be happening on Friday and Saturday. In our next episode, episode 23 of this podcast, we'll be sharing whatever we learned from D23 then. All right, let's get into some nerdy news. All right, nothing groundbreaking happening this week in the nerdy news of things, but there are some things that are worth talking about. So Halo Infinite, before the game even launched, they said we were going to eventually get split-screen co-op, but it was not going to be ready at launch. But now they have said split-screen co-op is canceled outright. We will not be getting split-screen co-op, which for a long time was a staple of the Halo franchise.
It's how you play Halo.
Yeah, like Josh and I grew up playing Halo co-op together. Yeah. It was left off of Halo 5 Guardians, and 343 Industries have come out and said that was a huge mistake. So they promised to put it back in for Halo Infinite, but they said they were running into technical issues with how the co-op would actually work split screen because it was an open world environment.
So they lied.
And now they're just canceling it outright. And my thing with that was that why does the open world aspect of the game change that? Because even with the original Halo game, they were huge maps, and if one player got so far away from the other player, it would just zap you back together. So like, why would that be an issue for Halo Infinite? Like,
maybe it's the expectation of a modern audience will not accept that limitation. Like, I could see myself already complaining about that actually. It's like, it's an open world. Why the crap do I have to stay right next to you?
But even then, there are so many open world games where you can explore it with a buddy. It's like, why does the split screen part of it make a difference?
Maybe that's too much stress on one piece of hardware. You got to remember
that is true.
The current generation of games have to be playable on both the Series X and the Series S.
Yeah.
Series S is severely limited compared to the X. And so maybe that plays into it. If you can't guarantee it'll work on the S, it's not fair to have it on the X.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to render two open worlds at the same time on the same machine,
that's actually asking a lot.
That might be too much for the hardware to handle. I mean, I that's my only thought on it. Other than that, I can't speculate as to why, but that's just my thought.
So now that I've devil's advocated it, I will say that if the limitation is that harsh and that severe, they should have known that well enough in advance to be able to never promise. Like, if it's that limiting, you just cannot do it. You would have known that.
Don't announce
well in
it
advance.
and make it a surprise a year after it comes out. Like, oh, by the way, we're introducing split screen co-op. Don't promise something that you don't think you can do.
Yeah.
That's bad PR.
It is.
So you guys feel a special kind of way about this, I see. I've not played much, as we've discussed before, maybe about an hour.
What you have played was split screen
co-op.
It
was split screen.
It's literally how you played.
But I'm pretty horrible at those games anyway, so I still don't have much of a say in it. I do agree with you guys, though. If they had promised a particular important feature that most people were excited about, they really needed to figure out a way how to come through with it.
Because like Halo is the sitting in the same room playing together game. Like that is probably one of the last true multiplayer games in the traditional sense of we all sit down in one room with Mountain Dews and you're all looking at one TV and like, I mean, it was such a huge part of everyone's childhood. And so it's disappointing. And I think that more than anything is a lesson in just be careful what you promise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad that split screen anything nowadays is pretty much dead unless you're playing like a party game on the Switch or something. But Halo was kind of like the last, pick up a second controller and play with your friend on the same couch type of game. They are still planning to introduce co-op campaign play via online play. However, even that has been pushed back to a to-be-announced date. So,
Corey, you actually sound a little sad and disappointed. I could.
I bought the PlayStation 5 on release day because I'm a PlayStation fan before Xbox, but I still bought an Xbox Series X for the sole reason that Halo Infinite was coming out. And yeah, the campaign was okay. It was not the best in my opinion, but a lot of people seem to like it. But I thought a big selling point was that it was going to reintroduce co-op to the game. And so now I'm feeling kind of ripped off. Like that honestly, I feel like that kind of opens them to some kind of legal issue because they promised something.
It was a promised feature.
It was a promised feature. So
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That puts them in an actionable position.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they have good lawyers, but yeah, it's just disappointing. So that was a big reason I bought my Xbox.
I'm sorry, guys.
It's fine. It's fine. We're going to move on because now I'm sad.
Super not.
You guys brought me down.
All right. Let's actually quickly talk about one more video game thing before we move on to something else completely. There is a new Mafia game in development officially. So, big, huge fan of the Mafia franchise, specifically the original one that was actually just remastered last year.
Remade. It wasn't really even a remaster.
It wasn't even remastered. It was remade. And actually, it was a little disappointing because they actually
removed things.
They removed missions entirely and put new ones in, which was a little weird, but overall, still, for the most part, the same game, just remade. But 2K Games and Hangar 13, the studio behind Mafia 3 and Mafia the remakes, has announced that a new Mafia game is in development. And reports are saying that it might be a prequel set in Italy to the first game.
Ew.
Now, if you have not played the original OG Mafia game, it's a classic. It is one of the best games of all time. One of the original games to tell an intricate cinematic-like story.
So, way back,
oh gosh,
I'd say about 2010, 2012 timeframe, there was a Flash game on Facebook called Mobsters.
We're not talking
Mafia.
about Facebook.
This is different.
This is way different.
Okay, because I'm like, this doesn't sound like the same, but
I actually know what you're talking about.
Right. Okay.
No, this was I think the first game came out in 2002.
Okay, so this is even before Mafia and Mobsters on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it came out on PC, then it was ported to Xbox and PlayStation 2. It was probably about a 15-hour long campaign. It was set in an open world, but it was actually a linear story. There actually was a free mode you could play, but the story was all linear. And it was basically just you working your way up through the ladder of this mafia for an Italian mob boss. You worked your way up from a getaway driver all the way up to like the right-hand man. And it's the perfect mafia story.
Do you get to become the mob boss?
No.
Oh.
You get murdered on your front lawn 20 years later.
Things go horribly wrong.
Seriously?
That's how it ends. Yeah.
Like, honestly, a better story, in my opinion, than The Godfather. Like,
Okay, that's a bold claim, but very much in the same vein.
Yes.
Okay.
Mafia 2, still a good game. Story was a little bit flat.
Mafia 3 was trash.
It was. But yes, so if they go back to the same ideas what the original game was, this is going to be an awesome game. So looking forward to it. Yet again, if you have not played the remastered or remake of Mafia, I think it's called the Mafia Definitive Edition. I highly recommend going and playing that.
Well, you guys already told me how it ended, so
it's not a spoiler.
Okay,
you see it coming.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Anyway, moving into Netflix. They are launching their ad tier months earlier than planned.
So they need money sooner.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
Anyway, so as reported by the Wall Street Journal, Netflix execs told ad buyers the launch date would now be November 1st, 2022, this year, for the launch of their new ad-supported tier. If this ends up being the case, Netflix could be launching its lower-priced ad tier a month ahead of Disney+. And originally, they were saying it was going to be early next year when it launched. So they're actually really pushing things forward.
So of all things, I was watching Streaming Wars, the South Park special.
Nice. On
Paramount Plus.
Highbrow entertainment there.
It actually is. That's the beautiful thing about South Park, is that it meshes highbrow and lowbrow. But the entire joke was that during the Streaming Wars, all of these competitors were running at a deficit and paying people money that they didn't have. And Netflix is very clearly the chief offender in this regard. And I mean, that's true when you think that the average Netflix project is $100 million, and at any given time they have 24 projects going. how much revenue can they really generate? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's before you pay your staff. That's before you pay your advertising fees. That's before you pay your, so.
Right. Revenue is different than profit.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so yeah, like it's not sustainable. And none of these platforms are really sustainable. I think the biggest issue that Netflix is having is that they've just been around long enough that people have finally started saying, where's my money? So, yeah, I'm sure they're hurting. This doesn't really surprise me.
So here's what's going to happen. We're going to have all these different new streaming channels out. We're starting to see a lot of them. Like, and there's some channels that are just on the fringes. You got Pluto and Flix and, things like that. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have these major corporations that we're all used to, like NBC, they got Peacock and ABC's got Disney and and ESPN and all and Netflix by itself, and then Paramount's on its own. And what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to sustain themselves. And then you're going to have this larger company start buying them up because they can. And you know who that's going to be? It's going to be Comcast.
Yeah. It will be Comcast every time.
And it's always going to be Comcast, and we're never going to get away from that business.
It'll be Comcast and it'll be AT&T. No, it's again, to quote one of Jason's favorite shows, South Park, they put it wonderfully. And again, and this is one of the things I mean it when I say that there is thought there. They pointed out the whole moment that it was destined to fail is when they went from a service that provides content to people who are trying to create content for a service. The whole reason Netflix was successful wasn't because of Netflix shows. It was successful because Netflix brought you the shows you wanted to watch in a way you wanted to watch them. Netflix's success was not because of their shows. It was successful because of Friends, because of How I Met Your Mother, because these were not shows they owned, but they were the shows you wanted to watch, and they gave you an easy way to watch them.
Valid point. All right. Score one South Park.
Yeah, that's why, for example, I think Paramount's in okay shape, because with the exception of a couple of the new Star Trek shows, everything that's on there, Paramount already owned. It's just their distribution service.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Netflix is struggling. They, instead of trying to retain distribution rights for other people, they decided that they would create their own content. That's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Netflix was like the TV land of the streaming area.
Is TV land still a thing?
I think it is.
It shows nothing but Gunsmoke.
and Rawhide.
Yeah.
All right, Netflix, keep rolling down that hill. See how that goes.
So from one dumpster fire to the next, our next segment is our now weekly check-in on the Warner Brothers Discovery dumpster fire. There are several things that have happened this week, yet again. But you guys seemed interested to talk about the Blue Beetle movie. So Blue Beetle is reportedly going to be really important to the DC Films universe. Now, this doesn't directly tie into just Warner Brothers being a dumpster fire, but it is kind of an update as a subtopic. So what's
I'm going to argue how it is.
Ooh, okay.
Tying into the dumpster fire. But first, I want Jason to say, maybe kind of summarize what you read, because you're the one who found the article.
Right. So they're kind of beginning to view Blue Beetle as the phoenix that's going to rise from the ashes of this dumpster fire.
That's such a random character to treat that as.
It really is. But the reason for that is because the source of the Blue Beetle's powers is cosmic in origin. So it can open up a whole new set of environments and sources for heroes and villains. And it's very much, it's kind of like a multiverse, but it's a universe at a universe level.
I was going to say, like, it's when Marvel introduced Guardians.
Right. This is the Guardians. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what this is an introduction of the cosmos and cosmic entities into DC.
Yeah.
So it's smart. Jaime as the carrier of the Scarab has been that carrier for a while. He is in Injustice 2 as the Blue Beetle. So this is a character that anybody who's been playing those games or reading the comics is familiar with, which I think is great. They're not trying to change that up. So yeah, I see a lot of positive potential with this movie and this character.
Yeah, so Blue Beetle was originally planned as an HBO Max release, but the strength of the production value had the studio upgrade it to a theatrical release. So they have a lot of promise in this movie. So I guess whoever was making it, I actually don't know, they're putting a lot of heart into it. So I guess it's turning out pretty well if they're going to upgrade it essentially to a theatrical release. It's also the cast includes people like Susan Sarandon,
right? Exactly.
George Lopez. What were your thoughts on Blue Beetle? You
seen this? Hold on. Oh gosh. Let me stretch real quick before I bring this whole
here we go.
This whole glass house down.
Is this a bold prediction? Do I need to bring out my spreadsheet?
No, it's not so much as a bold prediction. I'm just calling BS on the whole thing. And it's for two reasons. First off, they've been very clear that they're going to reboot this entire universe. So I don't care how great the movie is, it's not going to last. Secondly, the entire interview is from Walter Hamada, who has been fired and is not going to have a job by the time this movie comes out. So, I mean, like, dude could say whatever he wants. No one's going to hold him accountable to it because by the time the movie hits, he's gone. So why wouldn't he say all of his projects are doing great? Right now, he's brushing up his resume and trying to get a job somewhere else. So, yeah, like, it's cool that it's going to get a theatrical release.
Why are you like this?
I'm just saying, like...
Because I think they've hurt his feelings.
Well, no, I mean, it's...
He's vengeful now.
I know. I want the movie to be good. I think Blue Beetle's a fascinating character and deserves a good movie. So I'm looking forward to this one. But it doesn't matter, is all I'm saying. Because unless Warner Brothers does something weird, which we're going to talk about in a second... all indicators say that they're intending a fairly hard reboot of this entire thing.
Admittedly, I'll have to say that anything that I hear about Warner Brothers right now, I'm just taking with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Is pretty much rumor at best.
Yeah. Like,
at the same time, just because, I'm a diehard Superman fan and that it's not an S, it means hope where I come from, I will always be optimistic and hoping about these superhero movies just because I'd really like to see something really awesome come out. And I will champion some of these articles until I get proved wrong.
Well, I'm a Batman fan, and his symbol doesn't mean bat; it means you're about to get hurt. So,
and Corey, why don't you swing us out of this one, Spider-Man?
Oh, I got no good segue for that one.
Is your spider sense tingling?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so a few more Warner Brothers things. I think a big one is that we might start to see some studios pulling out of production deals with Warner Brothers. And I think the dominoes might be starting to fall. Because a big one, Legendary Entertainment, is said to be eyeing a move away from Warner Brothers when their current contract with WB Discovery expires. So for those that don't know, Legendary Entertainment has put out tons of big movies over the years, but most recently Dune, as well as movies in the Monsters universe, so Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong, and so on. They say they're currently committed to releasing Dune Part 2 with Warner Brothers, but after that, they will likely be shopping around to work instead with studios such as Sony or Paramount.
So I'm going to say a couple things. They are the folks who also did the Dark Knight trilogy, as well as Man of Steel.
Is that with Syncope?
Yes, with Syncope. Yes. Yep. It is... I hope they go to Sony, because bless their heart, Sony needs some help. That's all I'm going to say. I hope they go to Sony.
I also read this week that people are voice actors are being advised to stay away from Warner Brothers right now too. So the voice acting talent is being kind of diverted away from them at this time. So Warner Brothers, even if they course correct and we start seeing some good plans from the top, they've lost their stability and their credibility right now.
They have burned some bridges. They're risky business right now. Like, why would you commit to working with them if they could just cancel your deal and movie completely? So,
we keep talking about this like they're just going to continue to function at some level. And it just occurred to me, what if one of the longest running production companies folds in the next couple of years?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but I'm just like, it never even occurred to me until just now that within 5 or 10 years, Warner Brothers could be owned by somebody else or just not exist at all.
It'll be another Infinity Stone in Disney's gauntlet.
Right. We've got DC now, too.
Honestly, I think Amazon would be the buyer.
Amazon could be, I mean, as you'll later find out in this episode, Amazon might have the wherewithal to do something good with it.
Not even Amazon, just Bezos buys it.
Just, yeah.
No, he'll send it to the moon and call it an astronaut. Or, I mean, he'll send it into
put a cowboy hat on it.
No, he'll send it to low orbit
and call it an astronaut. There you go.
All right. And then one more Warner Brothers dumpster fire thing.
Oh my God. Can you smell the trash? Keep going.
All right. This one's not, I don't know. Josh, you might have more thoughts about this. But they have canceled this year's DC fandom. And so
because there's no fans.
Oh no. I think it's mostly because there's nothing to talk about because they keep canceling things. So DC fandom, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically it's only been around for 2 years, ever since the pandemic started. It's basically just a virtual event for fans to come together and share their love of DC, and I guess some announcements took place during it.
Yeah, so it was to give you a big update on everything that Warner Brothers was doing with DC, because when they announced it 2 years ago, and they did the first one 2 years ago, the DC was the flagship that was going to carry Warner Brothers to profitability and success. And oh my gosh, they're going to do everything. They've got cartoons, they've got movies, they've got games coming out and all this other. And so that's what they used it for. And the first one was wildly successful. Last year's was pretty good as well. I'm not surprised that they're not doing it this year, because as you've said, there's not that much to show off. Fun fact, The Flash has been talked about at every DC fandom ever, and we still don't have the movie. So, I mean, it's not surprising. It is a little disappointing because, to me, that would have been a good time to give a bigger presentation on what the plan is for the DC universe. But I also think that's why it was canceled. They're not ready to talk about that yet. Because, again, I think the plan is we're going to let everything that's coming run its course, and then we're starting over. But do you want to talk about starting over before your current lineup has hit the theaters?
Yeah.
That's a terrible business plan. So it kind of makes sense that they're just not going to say anything right now, because they don't want to shoot themselves even more in the foot. I guess shoot their other foot.
I think it would also be tone deaf to have some sort of celebratory event right now,
after canceling
so many things and potentially ruining so many people's careers.
Yeah.
I think just from a perspective of being a decent organization, it's probably a good idea to cancel it too, because there's not much to celebrate right now either.
No. And again, I think this is a good time to mention, you guys could completely disagree with me.
Okay, I disagree. Oh wait, after something else. Okay, sorry, keep going.
No, I don't think Warner Brothers is evil. I don't think Discovery is evil. I think they had to make some tough business decisions that were never going to be popular, no matter what they had to do. Could things have been done in a more couth way? Yes.
That's the fun part of our job. We get to speculate while they sit in their offices and make the real calls for their corporation. But, whatever. We're just the fans. No biggie.
All right, let's get into our reviews, impressions, and speculation segment, where we will be talking about She-Hulk Episode 3, House of the Dragon Episode 2, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Episode 1 and 2. So, there's an interesting thing happening here. Mm-hmm. These are 3 very different shows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard not to make comparisons in terms of quality and stuff.
Okay.
And so, like, She-Hulk, it's a silly sitcom. You can't really take it seriously, but, like, there are still some lore things to dissect, and you have to, like, speculate of what comes next and stuff, because it's building a huge world around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the House of the Dragon, which is basically a political drama set in the Dark Ages.
Okay.
So it's like the West Wing meets, I don't know, dragons. And then you have Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which is like a suspenseful
high fantasy.
High fantasy, I don't even know, like action. Okay. So when you're watching like Lord of the Rings of Power, I'm having to like really think what my scale is.
I see.
Which we can talk about this when we get to the Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has redefined how big TV can be.
Yeah.
It is insane in its scale. And I know one of my concerns going into it was that it was going to feel like a TV show. And it doesn't. It's a new Lord of the Rings movie every episode. And that's insane. So no, I get exactly what you're saying. They're all wonderful shows, but they're very different.
Yeah.
In every
and so like I'm having to remind myself that my scale is based on entertainment and not necessarily quality of what I'm seeing, because even between Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon, which are both hugely highly produced shows, even they have very different production values, especially when compared to She-Hulk. So I'm like, oh my God, how do I compare these shows? Obviously, we're not comparing them, but like it's hard not to when you're watching them like so close together.
Yeah.
When I was watching Lord of the Rings of Power, I couldn't help but make comparisons of the production value of it versus She-Hulk. Obviously, She-Hulk, if you're watching it by itself,
it's fine.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then when you immediately go and watch the Lord of the Rings of Power, which we did.
Another series, not movie, series.
Correct.
Yeah.
Vastly different production values. And so it was a very big stark contrast in what we're watching. But trying to put that out of my mind, it did make me have to kind of reconsider my scales, maybe. But we'll see after we have this conversation. So we're starting with She-Hulk. That was a long intro. Starting with She-Hulk episode 3 in our reviews. So let's talk some just recaps of the story and some speculation and stuff, because I think we can agree that the show, it's sticking to its guns. Like, it's still funny. It's still same quality across the board. Like, it hasn't really lost anything in terms of quality. Would you guys agree?
I found I'm enjoying it more with each episode.
Yeah. I'm having fun.
Yeah. So this episode, we really got a good look into Jennifer being a lawyer. Like, it was her defending Abomination. And so there are actually 2 stories in this episode. There was the A story where she is building her case to defend Abomination. Then there was the B story where it was Dennis trying to defend himself against the... What was her? She was a shapeshifter.
She was an elf from
shapeshifting high elf, ice elf, or
from New Asgard.
Light elf, light elf from Asgard.
And he, what was it? He was suing her for being defrauded of money.
Yeah, essentially. Yes. Yeah, he was defrauded of money. Yeah.
So yeah, this episode, it definitely leaned a little bit more into the silly. Would you guys agree? Like there were definitely some more comical elements. Yes. I would think.
But it was handled well with care.
Yeah.
If you think about some of the more enjoyable humor from Marvel that seemed to just hit right instead of the forced stuff, that's what this was. It was Marvel humor that hit correctly. And it was kind of like a 25-minute worth of it. There was some, seriousness to what was going on in the story, but it was quirky. And, we got fourth wall breaking.
There's a considerable amount more fourth wall breaking this episode.
And I didn't know if that was going to work for anything other than Deadpool.
It's
working. And the way that I'm describing it for people who I grew up with, or like my parents' generation, is like, it's kind of Marvel meets Ally McBeal.
Yeah.
And the reaction was, oh, maybe I will check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned the fourth wall breaking thing. So there's actually 2 quotes, and actually the second one will lead into the next topic. So the first one, it was when she was at, I think it was the bar, and she was sitting with, I think it was her assistant and the other lawyer guy, and she just kind of leans in and was like, oh, we're connecting story A and B. Nice. So that was a nice little cute moment. And then the second one, she was in her car, and she just looked right into the camera. She's like, yeah, it's another cameo. Don't expect it every week. This is my show. Except, there was Abomination and Hulk and Bruce and now Wong. So she's teasing that she's well aware that they're getting a bunch of cameos on the first episodes. But I think she was teasing that it probably is going to be a cameo every episode. but it is still her show. Because like we even argued on the last episode,
It doesn't feel like
it doesn't feel like her show. But she was like, "Oh, it's my show."
Which is it's kind of funny that it was kind of addressed, and they were prepared for that.
Yeah,
we certainly aren't the same people, the only people thinking these thoughts. So I like that they, they're kind of leaning into
it's self-aware,
right?
Yeah. So that second fourth wall breaking, saying Wong has appeared in She-Hulk.
Right.
He's basically becoming this phase's Stan Lee. Like,
I guess so. And
he's everywhere.
He's in everything. Yeah.
And it's fun. I like the actor who plays Wong, and I really like the character of Wong. They've done a really good job of making him just kind of a calming presence in a very chaotic Marvel universe right now.
Yeah, he could have very much been a throwaway character, and it's kind of neat that he's become not really just significant, but I mean, like fully integrated into and he's all over the place. All over the place.
I wonder if we're onto something here. Don't know what yet.
Okay.
But they were both looking at me expectantly. I'm like,
go on.
I don't know.
They are emphasizing his importance in some way.
Exactly.
Like he's appeared in basically everything except for.
I mean, he is the.
I think he's appeared in everything in Phase 4 except for maybe Hawkeye.
He wasn't in probably a deleted scene.
He wasn't in Moon Knight, but he was in Miss Marvel. He was in Shang-Chi. He was in No Way Home. He was in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, obviously. So yeah, he's been all over the place. And now he is here in She-Hulk. And Jennifer brought him in as a witness, as a character witness, to defend the reason that Abomination was breaking out of prison.
Right.
So
it was really didn't break out. He was taken out of prison.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Yeah. We also learned that the 7 soulmates were not the Thunderbolts.
They really are the 7 soulmates.
They were 7 women
so disappointing.
who were very eager for him to leave prison.
Well, and we talked about this when we watched it, because we did get to watch it together this week. We kind of had to sit back and say, this is a very different Marvel show. And while there are Easter eggs, and plenty of them, you can't necessarily look at everything in the show as a big tease for something else, because a lot of the things that seem like jokes are actually just jokes.
Yeah.
And so in a traditional Marvel piece, him referencing his 7 beautiful future brides would have been maybe a tease for a team up or something. Right. No, this is actually just a joke that he is a very popular member of the prison pen pal program.
And I just wonder if Marvel's trolling us. I'm certain that they knew people were going to, because they're like,
it's a very self-aware show.
Exactly.
Like it's that would actually be very, very smart.
and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. And if I was in on it, I'd be laughing my butt off watching everyone talk about, like, no, they're totally talking about the Thunderbolts.
Did you listen to that Eat Sleep Nerd podcast?
Yeah, they said it was
those 3 guys, they thought it was the Thunderbolts. They fell for it.
Bunch of nerds. So there were a few things that I was less than fond of coming around. The biggest ones were, this was probably one of the weaker episodes effects-wise. Especially a few times I noticed when She-Hulk was entering rooms at the law office, the walking animation was very weird. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like it was mismatched into the footage when they were marrying it in. Like it almost glided on the frame a little bit. And it was just, I don't know if maybe these were pickup shots that the VFX houses had to do really, really fast. Some of that. But this was the first episode where there were times where I said, She-Hulk doesn't look very good.
And see, I don't care about it, especially ever since.
Yeah, and to me, that's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I think we all have the same rules of primarily what we grade on is the story.
Right. And the acting.
And the acting and the things that should be good no matter what.
Right.
That being said, though, I noticed it.
It's distracting.
And it was a little rough sometimes. The other thing that I've realized that because I haven't really brought it up because I didn't know how to really say it, but I figured out my issue with the She-Hulk as a character.
Okay.
And this, and again, this comes back to tone, right? It is a comedy. so we don't expect anything to weigh it down or be heavy. But in every great superhero ever, there's always a cost to their powers, right? So Superman is basically a god. He also lost his parents and his entire home planet. That sucks. Batman is the coolest superhero ever. He lost his family. Hulk spent years of his life on the run and lost everything he loved and cared about. There's really been no cost to She-Hulk's powers. She lost her job, but let's be real, she went from a district attorney to a private lawyer. She got a pay raise. And so if there's one thing that I hope gets addressed before the show is up, is that I want there to be an actual weight that comes with her powers. Because right now it's just happy-go-lucky, everything's okay. Like, she's annoyed that she has to kind of show out a little bit. Right. Like, there's an expectation for her to be She-Hulk. But I mean, that's not...
So
you get what I'm saying?
I do, but I also disagree because I think that's why it is a sitcom. It's because the She-Hulk character loves being She-Hulk. Like in the comics, she loves being She-Hulk. She loves parading around the town, going to bars in her She-Hulk persona because she just loves it so much. And I think that's why it's a sitcom, is because there is really no dark side, no downside,
right,
to her.
And again, and that comes back to, this is very tonally different than what most of the MCU has been. And so, I mean, this may be something that I just have to choke down. And that's fine. Like, as far as gripes go, this is a relatively little one. But ever since the show came out, I've been trying to figure out what bugged me about it. And I think that's what it is just that the kind of understood foundation is that there's always a burden, there's always a cost, there's always Peter Parker has no life. His private life falls apart because he's too busy feeling the responsibility of trying to be Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? There's always a weight that balances it out. And so, again, this is a comedy. Probably won't get that. And I guess that'll be okay. But I think that Phase 4 in general has kind of shown the MCU is diversifying. And I mean that even just as far as what audiences, I think we're getting to the point, not everyone is not going to watch every piece of the MCU moving forward.
Except for us.
I mean, yeah, we will. Because you're always going to have your hyper nerds that watch all of it. But like Miss Marvel is not meant for everyone. She-Hulk might not be meant for everyone. Some of the darker MCU stuff, especially if they're bringing back Daredevil and stuff like that might not be for everybody. You know, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. That might not be the one you take your 8-year-old to watch.
If they keep bringing Sam Raimi back, whoo.
Yeah, Doctor Strange was not for your 8-year-old. It just wasn't. And I don't necessarily inherently think that's a bad thing, but that puts an extra burden on the writers and Kevin Feige. You can't make every piece essential viewing when that happens. So you can diversify it, but you can't have key plot points in every single property anymore. So I'm interested to see how this goes, because I like the idea that it's diversifying, but it's going to make it a lot more complicated to run it.
Yeah. All right. Let's do one more thing we got to talk about with She-Hulk before we move on. So we didn't get the Thunderbolts, but the 4 guys that jumped She-Hulk at the end of the episode were an established crew of comic book characters. They were the Wrecking Crew, and they were portrayed pretty silly and underwhelming in this show, but in the comics they actually are a pretty significant team of bad guys, and they have taken down teams such as the Avengers at times. So they are equipped with what appear to be Asgardian weapons. And when they get back into their van after She-Hulk defeated them, they mentioned that their boss won't be happy. Now that's probably a significant line. Who do we think their boss is? Who would be trying to take down She-Hulk? And I was going to say Kingpin.
Kingpin, yeah.
Because that would actually explain why Daredevil shows up at some point.
Right.
Correct.
But
I'm for it.
If it's not Kingpin, who else do you guys might think it might be? Or we just sold in Kingpin?
I would say, what is her name that Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays?
Oh,
that could be a good one.
That's a really good guess.
Yeah. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Wow. That's actually a name.
Who she, yeah, and you're right. She's appeared in Black Widow. She's appeared in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so
and maybe she's the boss here.
Yeah, so she is seemingly assembling Thunderbolts, and I'm actually glad you mentioned that she appeared in Black Widow, because it actually just came out in the news this week. I'm actually saving this news story for this segment because it might tie in, is that Florence Pugh's Black Widow is reportedly going to be the leader of the MCU's Thunderbolts.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So it makes sense that Julie Louis-Dreyfus was recruiting her, and she was probably recruiting her to be the leader. So,
and now that we've lost William Hurt, who played Thunderbolt Ross, it would make sense that Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character would have to step into that role, and it will probably be done like in honor of Thunderbolt Ross. Like that's how we name the team or something. So yeah.
Could be her, could be Kingpin. It would be awesome if it was Kingpin, because we do know Daredevil showing up at some point. So it would make sense, because you have to think Daredevil is in New York. She-Hulk is in LA. What brings Daredevil all the way to the other coast? It's got to be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be something big. Yeah.
So that is She-Hulk episode 3. We have more episodes to come, but after 3 episodes, what are we giving it, guys? And yet again, I was saying I was maybe going to have to rethink my score, because Lord of the Rings kind of maybe shifted my scale a little bit in what I'm considering entertainment value.
The Lord of the Rings has redefined entertainment.
And we'll talk about that in a second for why I think that. But so currently I'm sitting at a 4, Josh is at a 4, Jason's at a 4.25 for She-Hulk after 2 episodes. So after 3 episodes, how are we feeling?
I mean, I'm leaving mine at a 4. I feel like 4 is a good number for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good show. It doesn't blow my mind. Like I said, that
was it. I think it's because it doesn't blow my mind like The Rings of Power does, that it made me want to rethink my scale. But then I had to come back to, well, I'm still having a good time.
Yeah.
So I think 4 is really good.
Yeah, like it's a good show. But I mean, like even within the scale and the frame of the MCU and an MCU TV show, it's not doing anything to redefine how I think of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's good. I'm having fun. I'll watch the next one and I'll keep watching it through the end. If anything, my opinion might have gone down just a hair this week because of, like I said, in my opinion, the cracks were showing a little bit on this episode. Not enough to ruin anything, but enough that I noticed it.
Yeah. What about you, Jason? Yeah. So Josh is out of 4. 4 out of what?
4 She-Hulk twerks out of 5.
I thought you were going to say yada yada yadas.
Oh, well, okay. That's funny too. 4 yada yada yadas out of 5.
All right, Jason, what about you?
I'm going to say 4 instead of 4.25.
All right, so we're 4s across the board. She-Hulk, after 3 episodes, is now sitting at a 4, even out of 5. All right, we are moving into House of the Dragon episode 2. And as a reminder, we are reviewing this series basically 1 week and 1 day late because of our recording schedule. We actually record the day before the new episodes of House of the Dragon air. And our episode is actually released 2 days after that episode airs. So we're reviewing episode 2, but episode 3 is already available to go watch. Hopefully you've seen it by now. You've had time. So let's get into House of the Dragon episode 2. How are we feeling after 2 episodes? We just got the theme song. The theme song is back.
It is back. And we got the title sequence.
It's like you have to sing along to it. You have to hum it. You can't stop it.
It's not really a humming. It's a dun 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 dun. It's a tongue on the teeth thing.
Yeah, it's a very dun 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 dun. Yeah, it is articulated,
right?
And it's because it allows
staccato.
Yeah, it allows a little more forcefulness.
Right.
And there, it's a very beefy theme. I'm glad the theme is back.
It's the same theme. It's not even.
Yeah, like I didn't know if we were going to get kind of like a remix or
it's slightly remixed. Like
I mean, you can tell it's not the exact same recording. It's not the exact same, but I mean, it is the Game of Thrones theme. I mean, I'm liking it. It's good. This episode, I feel like maybe they almost stretched it a little bit. Yeah, I feel like it could have been tighter.
Yeah, so Jason mentioned after the first episode that his biggest complaint was that it just dragged on. Well, it wasn't even dragged on, it was slow.
Yeah.
And I definitely felt that in this episode. Like, there were just some scenes where it's like, they're not even talking, they're just sitting there. No, hurry it up.
Yeah, and I mean, it was not I feel like they had about 30 minutes of material, and they just could not figure out, really anything else to add. So they...
Interesting. So I kind of viewed it as character and plot development, and I was all in.
Oh, it definitely was.
I meant like for me, like it was like they were telling a story to me. Like I felt like I was in a book. and I liked it.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining so much as just saying that I do, when I look back on what actually was accomplished within the episode, not that much. There were a few little announcements toward the end. The king actually deciding who he was going to marry.
Right.
Which was good, but again, not unexpected. Actually, I think that might be my biggest is that it's so far it's unfolding exactly the way I thought it was going to unfold.
Yeah.
And if there's anything missing so far that was in the original Game of Thrones, it's the unpredictability.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So now again, it's still very much setting the stage. And I do know that the director of episode 2 is also the director of episode 3 and 4. And usually when you have a director that does multiple episodes back to back to back, it's because it's essentially one arc and they're just in charge of the whole arc. So you should probably view this as act 1 of probably a pretty big little arc that's about to kick off.
So I'm glad you say that because apparently, I didn't realize this. Maybe this was previously announced, but it was a trending thing today that there is apparently in the coming episodes a huge time jump coming. And they're actually going to be using different actors and actresses to play the same characters we've been accustomed to. So the main actress, I forget her name, the character, is going to be played by a different person because she's going to be significantly older.
Yeah.
So are we almost done with her?
I think so. I inadvertently spoiled it because I like going on IMDb, and
she's only in the first few episodes.
I didn't look to see how many episodes, but it said the actress was playing the young Rhaenyra. I'm like,
yeah,
no,
which by default means
there's I'm like, no, and so I stopped looking, but it was too late.
Yeah. So this is spoilers for future spoilers,
right?
So like the kids are basically going to be the ones that get recast, and then the older people are going to basically just be aged with additional makeup and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, or so maybe not de-aged with makeup.
Right.
Yeah, because let's be real, we try to make most people look better.
So anyway, that ties into your theory is that it does seem like there's going to be this initial arc.
I very much, else. Like I think, to me, I'm viewing episode 2 as the second part of episode 1, like in a very literal way. I think we're just really getting to the point where the board has been set. You know, things are just, we've established that Daemon is definitely just going to do whatever he wants and is probably about to start a coup.
Yeah.
I think doctors are normally like that.
Yeah.
They just, no. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The other Valerian house probably teaming up with him. So now we're splitting the 7 kingdoms. I mean, it's like I said, I think you put it well. This was very much a building sort of episode.
This is a construction episode.
Yeah. So no, it's good. I'm in. I'm not changing my score. I'm leaving it at a 5.
No, but you're 100% right. There was not much excitement. And even in the one action scene that had like a real potential for a wow factor, which was with the dragons.
Yeah, they railed it in.
They reeled it in a little bit. I don't even know if they reeled it in, and maybe we just didn't get wowed. I don't know. I watched it a second time with you guys, and I was confused the first time I watched it. I didn't know, like, were both dragons on their side? Was one dragon on his side and one dragon on hers? Like, it was confusing to me, you know?
Yeah, I asked the same thing. Whose dragon was the first dragon that showed up?
That was Daemon's.
I think it was,
that was the one he rode off on. So that is his personal dragon.
Okay, I forgot about that scene that he rode off. Okay,
yeah, that is his personal dragon.
So had I remembered that, I would not have been confused. Okay,
yeah, well,
that's shut up then.
That's why the hand and all of his men sheath their swords. Is as soon as the dragon shows up, it's not a fair fight anymore.
Right.
Like why basically just agree to get yourself killed? And
I picked up on that this time as I watched,
Yeah.
But I forgot about the writing off. So yes, okay. Yeah. Never mind.
There's one more thing, and this is some speculation stuff. So why do we think his skin is rotting? In the first episode, we saw that he had a sore in his back, but now his entire pinky is completely decomposed. So what's going on there? What is this leading to?
I don't know what the back thing is yet.
I think it's all related. I think you said leprosy.
I think what we're looking on in the finger is leprosy.
So is this maybe leading to his untimely death
or disfigurement or something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is
probably untimely death.
Yeah, I think this is leading to a realization that he's gonna have to get his stuff together. Like,
he has to create an heir.
if he was in good health, I think he probably would have pushed back on everyone telling him he needs to get another wife really soon. But I'm wondering if maybe in the back of his head, he's wondering if he's okay. Because, I mean, he's got a whole council of people telling him, you're fine. But
he's also not a very strong king.
he's not. Like I said, he's a
good, a decent person.
Yeah, he's a good person, and that makes you an okay king as long as things are going well.
Right.
But, for example, he's completely ignoring anything that could cause conflict.
Right. And in fact, he's doing everything he can to avoid it, even if that means not being a strong king or, anyway. But yeah, so they're doing a good job of creating kind of this tragic character who seems like a fairly decent person, but is doing horribly at his job.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because when he was first on screen last week, I literally thought it was, oh, it's so nice that they have a nice king. Because that's kind of been the running theme of Game of Thrones is that everyone is terrible all the time.
And if you're not terrible, you get killed off.
Yeah. And so it was just, oh, this is nice. This is sweet. But it actually shows a very real thing that has tremendous historical precedent in the real world, which is the nicest people are not always the best leaders.
Yeah.
And he's kind of proving that. And so there are wartime kings and there are peacetime kings. He's very much a peacetime king. He is not a wartime king. Feel bad for the dude. Can't wait to see what happens.
All right, so wild speculation time. We were all incorrect that the king would die in this episode. That was who we speculated would die next. No one died in this episode, which is a little disappointing.
Didn't feel like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Just wait.
All right, so in episode 3, which yet again has already aired by the time this podcast episode airs, so we're predicting what's technically already happened. Who do we think dies in episode 3?
I mean, I still think the king is on the chopping block.
I was about to say on the chopping block, so to speak. Yeah.
I'm thinking. I don't think she's gonna die. I think there's definitely gonna be a target on Hightower's head, the young lady.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, as much as we want to say Rhaenyra, whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, there's some risk from like Daemon, who, I mean, she even tried to call him out on it and tell him to try to attack her in this episode. So there's a party that might be interested in taking her out, but poor little Hightower girl, everyone is going to want to take her out.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was my
prediction too. And they've been very open about that. And even Rhaenyra has shown some, not hostility, but clearly she's displeased with this choice.
Yes.
I don't think she would ever hurt her friend, but she clearly is not happy about it.
Yeah, they may not be friends anymore after this.
Yeah.
The one thing that I thought about was Rhaenyra's and Daemon.
Yeah. I think it's one of those
That's not the one name I can pronounce is Daemon.
They're kin, and they're also like kindred spirits. Yeah. They showed that in the first episode. And I think she was banking on his affection for her to help her win that situation. So I think that may end up being a casualty of what's going on too, is their good relationship.
Oh.
And I hate that because they seem like a good pair of people together.
So you're saying a friendship is going to die.
I feel like their relationship,
prediction.
Well, I think I mean, like he's her cool uncle.
Jason.
Right, the cool, hey,
he's the cool uncle.
As the person who's trying to be a cool uncle, I get the
Corey
cool uncle
gets it.
thing.
I want to know whose head's going to be chopped off next.
But
I get it.
I don't know.
It was a
I
good
think
prediction.
the king is going to have to die and soon. That's what's going to happen. Because otherwise you're not going to have a vacuum of power in which you're going to have a battle for who gets the Iron Throne.
Hence no Game of Thrones.
Or a Feast for Crows. Or a Dance with Dragons. Or anything else like that.
Let's move into scores. So after 2 episodes of House of the Dragons, what are we giving it?
I mean, I only do the whole numbers, so I'm going to leave it at a 5. If I did half marks, I'd probably do like a 4 or 5 or something like that, because I don't feel like it was perfect. It's still absolutely wonderful. It still feels like the old show in a good way, not in a bad way. So I'm going to give it 5 crib dragon eggs out of 5.
Okay. And I'm also staying out of 5 because, yet again, I don't really have any complaints so far. So why demerit it? And Jason.
What did I have last time?
You were out of 4.5.
I'm going to stick with that.
Solid. So we're sitting after 2 episodes.
4.83?
4.83.
We've done this enough. I know what it's going to be.
All right.
Jason's like, I know what the math is when I ruin a perfect score.
All right, let's move into a new show into our rotation. Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Both episodes 1 and 2 are out now, and we are recapping them in this episode.
Oh my God.
This has redefined television.
It was epic.
In every sense of the word.
Right.
In every sense of the word. And I hate it because it's getting review bombed. It's like I was expecting to go on there and like see perfect scores across the board, but it's getting dumped by trolls and stuff. So it's hard to tell how people are actually reacting to this show. But the three of us, we're head over heels in love with this show.
The real people that I've talked to have all said the same things.
Yeah.
Like they loved it. They were totally surprised and blown away. And I think, we all maybe didn't have low expectations. That would be harsh. But I know I definitely said, y'all ready to watch this dumpster fire? Like I was not expecting it to be good, let alone amazing. And so yeah, I think give it a little bit of time. Hopefully moderators and
like Amazon has actually completely turned off user ratings because it was getting bombed so bad.
Yeah.
So that's just disappointing because
it's a phenomenal
It's a good show.
Yeah. Like
these first 2 episodes are excellent.
Yeah.
Like the scale is there, the story is there, the presentation is there. Like these are all things that I was worried about.
And one of the things that I commented right off the bat was how good the effects were, the CGI was.
So let's start there. So Josh, you mentioned it had a budget of $1 billion. Is that correct?
So I believe, and we can look this up to verify it, I believe it was pre-greenlit for 2 seasons with a budget of $1 billion.
Yes. So I just looked it up. The budget for season 1 alone for The Rings of Power is $715 million.
Nice.
How
many episodes?
9. 9 episodes.
9 episodes. So they have
each episode is
80 some odd $1 million.
And they used every cent of that.
to put it into perspective, and I don't even remember why I remember this number, Game of Thrones at its peak had a budget of $10 million per episode. So this has almost 10 times as much money to work with. So no wonder it looks amazing.
Yeah, it was so beautifully rendered. There were scenes that were clearly, they could not be
real.
Yeah. They couldn't.
But they looked real.
But they looked so good. And then it made me, in that moment, think, what are these other production companies doing with their money? That this looks so good, and these other companies had stuff that looked so bad. So I was just, anyway, I was blown away.
The music,
the music was epic.
Bear McCreary, and Howard Shore.
And Howard Shore
came back to do some of the main themes.
He came back to do the main theme.
So Bear McCreary, little backstory on him. Who is he?
So Bear McCreary has really made a name for himself in television and video games. So his first big show that I know of was he did The Walking Dead. He did all the music for that. Then he eventually started getting into other television programs, video games, and most recently his big project was God of War.
That's right. Yes, just looked it up. So God of War and the upcoming God of War Ragnarok. So yes, that's awesome.
So I mean, clearly, dude knows big music. And
he did Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, that's cool.
That's right.
That's cool.
Which that's a show we should go over one day.
That is good. Yeah,
that was a good show.
Anyway, I like that show.
But yeah, so Bear McCreary killed it. Like he embraced the scale and the epicness of the Howard Shore music, but he still made it his own. Like it was still a very modern score, and just murdered it. And I mean, just everything about the show.
even just the first 10 minutes before the first title card, it showed basically everything you'd want. It had the big epic battle scene. It had the big environment where the elves are traversing across like the frozen landscape. They find their way inside this I guess it was, I don't know, a cave or
it was a ruined castle.
Yeah, and they got attacked by
Snow Troll.
Snore Troll.
And that battle was epic, and she went ham on him, and just the entire first 10 minutes of the show is like, this is the first 10 minutes. What happens next? Like, that was enough for me.
And then it never let down.
Yeah.
Like it's they very easily could have blown like the whole budget on that first 10 minutes just to get you hooked. No, it kept going. Like it wasn't just a hook. Like they made you a promise and they've pretty much kept it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just sorry, I've been like holding on to this so we could talk about it. But I mean, it's just an insane show. And I don't know how much we want to talk about the plot.
I would love to. I actually don't have any plot things broken out for us to talk about, so go wild.
So takes place in the Second Age, which follows something they just briefly touch on at the very, very beginning. But the whole event that kicks off the story is essentially Sauron's, who's the big bad from the original trilogy.
Yep.
His master extinguishes a very important religious and spiritual artifact to the High Elves. So much so that they traverse the Mystic Sea and end up in Middle Earth, and that's how the elves end up in Middle Earth in the first place, which was only ever kind of just briefly touched on in the original trilogy, that they were not from Middle Earth, and that they would eventually all return across the shimmering seas. So it starts off with that and the war that brings them over to Middle Earth because they're going to beat up on Sauron and his master and all the orcs and the evil men, and they essentially do that, and that actually wraps up relatively quick in the first portion of the episode. But like Corey said, they spared no expense in showing what that war looked like, and eventually the story kicks off with Galadriel, who is played by
Cate Blanchett.
Yeah, Cate Blanchett. In the original trilogy, this is kind of her backstory. Is essentially how it's playing out. She leads a group of revenge elves who want to make sure that Sauron is gone. So that
but
kicks off.
But no one believes her.
Yeah, but no one believes her. And I mean, as the audience, we know that she's right. But that runs in conjunction with Elrond, who again is played by Hugo Weaving in the original trilogy. Him teaming up with a certain elf who is looking to build a very extravagant forge and will eventually create the Rings of Power, hence the name of the show.
They said the thing.
They did the thing. But
Josh did the thing.
Yeah.
They did not say the thing.
But no, so I mean, again, we're very much at the beginning of this. Like I would say we're not even to the point where Game of Thrones is, where they've set the board. We're still setting the board.
Right.
I would say most of the pieces are essentially where they need to be. But I think we're very much just getting started.
Do you want to talk about The Stranger?
You mean...
I mean, it's Gandalf, right? Like, it's Gandalf,
the
right?
Credits say The Stranger.
Right.
Okay. It just happens to be someone who looks like a young Ian McKellen.
With a beard. It's really gray. Like
it's reddish gray.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's kind of gray. It's like his clothing that
he's tall and lanky, and
right.
They get him a nice
clearly
big
has
robe.
some magic.
Yeah, like it's
yeah.
So no. I mean, again, it is. I don't know how much they're going to stick to it. All of the Middle Earth history is covered in the book that no one can pronounce. It's the similarity, the
metaphor, the similarities,
the similar,
yeah, that
something like that.
But in the book, it explains that all the wizards in Middle Earth are really not wizards. That's just what we call them because we don't really have a word for what they are, and they are essentially angelic beings.
Yeah, they're like some sort of celestial creatures.
Yeah, and they're the foil to Sauron and his master, more something. It's been a while since I read the book, but anyway, that book, the similar is very much written kind of like it's very much written kind of like a history book. It's not super narrative heavy. It's more like just this is everything that happened in the 4,000 years leading up to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit that we're familiar with. And so the writers could very much go by what that book says and kind of use it as a Bible, but still very much get to fill in the exact events that happened. So the idea of Gandalf riding into Middle Earth on a friggin' meteorite, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. It was a heck of an entrance.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be so disappointed if it's not Gandalf. But
if it's not, it better be somebody
worth
it not being Gandalf.
Yeah, like it's
I really hope it's not Saruman.
See, that would be a good twist, though, and it just occurred to me right before you said that, because I was just thinking, ooh, how cool would it be if they hyped us up for Gandalf when he finally learns to talk? He says, "I am Saruman."
You're like, oh no, and yeah.
But at this point in the story, he would be a good guy,
right?
So
and it would be
still
an acceptable
be cool.
difference.
Like that would be a good twist.
Yeah,
but
so far the 2 episodes have been, I think, enchanting is a good word to say it, because we were riveted to the television watching this.
Yeah,
watching these 2 episodes. They're beautiful, and there's
a charm
wonderful
to them that is very much like
this is what I was trying to say, though, as I was trying to remember what it was I was going to get to. I did not know how you could beat Peter Jackson's vision.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying beat it.
Throw $1 billion at it, and you can beat it.
Well, they do that with Warner Brothers, and that doesn't seem to do anything right anyway. But it didn't beat Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, but it was different enough to make it its own, and you didn't feel like you were just watching a recap or scene stolen from.
Yeah,
it was really great.
Let me put it this way. As a diehard I hate fantasy person, I loved every second of it. So that's saying something.
You heard it here first. Go watch it.
That's basically what I'm saying. Yes. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts about the first 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, before we move on to the outro?
No, just I'm ready for episode 3.
I concur.
So after 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings of Power on Amazon, what are we feeling about this in terms of scores?
I'm giving it 5 meteorite wizards out of 5.
I am also going to give it 5 out of 5. I'm not going to steal your thing.
And I am also a 5 out of 5. And this is like a solid 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd give it a 6 if I could. I'd give it a 10 if I could.
All right, so that is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. After 2 episodes, we are giving it a 5 out of 5. And to correct something I said earlier, it's actually only 8 episodes in season 1, not 9.
Well, thank you for dashing my hopes.
Sorry, but there is a second season, so there you go.
Fine.
Yeah.
But that means they have almost $100 million in episodes.
That's true.
Yeah, yet again, using every cent. So that is our entire episode. On next week's episode, we will be talking about She-Hulk episode 4, House of the Dragon episode 3, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power episode 3, and coverage from Disney's D23 Expo. Please share the show with your friends.
Please share.
Okay.
You want me to walk us out? I'll be back.
Okay. Take it easy, people.